And we are going to finish off with a fantastic speaker right here. This man is the co-founder of Global Exchange Fair Trade USA and the Green Festivals, author and editor of 12 books on global political economy, including his 2 latest, The Green Festival Reader, Fresh Ideas from Agents of Change, and Building the Green Economy, Success Stories from the Grassroots. San Francisco, please get up for your last speaker this afternoon, Dr. Kevin Danaher.
Thanks a lot. And as you can see, I teach at Feather River College, right? The Golden Eagle. We actually have eagles up in Plumas County. Plumas County is up northeast. If you were going from Chico to Reno, you'd go on Highway 70 and you would go through Quincy, the town where I live and where the college is. There's only 18,000 people in the entire county. 70% of the land is national forest. So we, the people, own the majority of the county. It's pretty unique in the country. So as Albert Einstein said, you can't solve the problem with the same thinking that created the problem in the first place. It's not just that our current food system is unsustainable. It's that our species has overshot the carrying capacity of this planet. We are destroying the planet's ability to support our species. All these, we're in the 6th great species extinction. Do we think we can exterminate all these other species and it's not going to impact us? That's really dumb, right? So this global economic system, it's called capitalism. Corporate capitalism is producing more inequality and more environmental destruction. If you're following the news, the tax plan being put forward by the Republicans is going to eliminate the estate tax. So Trump and all of his administration are going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's going to accelerate the inequality of our society. Great idea. And try using the word capitalism and see people's reaction. In the Soviet Union under communism, they could use the word communism. We're not allowed to use the word capitalism. You use the word capitalism, people go, oh, he's some kind of communist. Well, there is no more communism, so figure it out. Our food system, from farm to table, is dominated by large corporations whose main aim is not to keep us healthy. It's to make profits. That's what it's about, right? It's in their corporate charters. There are now B Corps, and B Corps are cool because they have social equity, environmental restoration, and profitability in their corporate charters, so that's cool. Here's our food system. You got a handful of these big corporations. They own all of these other products, so people think, oh, we have variety. Look, we have 72 kinds of breakfast cereal. And it's all basically crap that's not good for you. 42 kinds of toothpaste. Really? I've traveled a lot in so-called third world countries, the global south, the former colonial countries. They get by without 47 kinds of toothpaste, These are all companies that don't want GMO foods labeled. If genetically modified organisms in our food are so good, why wouldn't you want people to know? Wouldn't you publicize it? No, they hide the fact, right? So if I'm hiding something, it's like the magician that is doing this and the trick is happening in the other hand. That's the function of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the magician's hand that's doing tweets about the NFL shouldn't be kneeling down. And in the meantime, his administration is rolling back all the health and safety and labor rights and all these other things that we fought for decades. So that's the real danger, not the idiot in chief. Here's the number of corporations that control a majority of U.S. media, right? And where do the corporate media get their money? They get it from corporate advertising. People totally misunderstand what the corporate media are about. They think we're the consumers, and the products being consumed are the products in the advertising. No, we are the product. Right? The corporate advertisers are paying the media to penetrate our brains and shape our values, so our children will grow up thinking that success in life is a quantitative measure of the things you own rather than a qualitative measure of what are your relationships with other people and nature like, right? So is it going to be quantity or quality? A corporate diet is dangerous to your health. SAD is the standard American diet. I think that's totally appropriate acronym sad. I'm eating sad today. Processed food and industrial meat is the basis of many common diseases. Many doctors agree the best diet, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, a plant-based diet, right? Very simple. A plant-based diet is better for you and it's better for the planet. How nice to be able to do something that's good for you and good for the community and good for the planet at the same time. This is a really great book, right? And I want to mention another book. There's a really great book by a medical doctor called How Not to Die. And each chapter is how not to die of Alzheimer's, how not to die of diabetes, how not to die. And it all comes down to the same thing, plant-based diet, plant-based. And they mass up all of this evidence from all over the world, right? Meat eaters have 3 times more dementia than vegetarians. Plant-based diet helps prevent decline in lung function, especially if you're smoking, dumb habit. Acidity in meat and dairy upsets your body's pH balance, which leads to inflammation and metabolic acidosis, the precursor to cancer and other diseases. So here are high-protein foods. I know well-educated people who think that protein only comes from meat. You know, all of these things, chia seeds, barley grass, almonds, figs, hemp seeds, now legal in the state of California. We can get all the protein we need. This is why we have wrestlers and football players and all these big tough guys that are vegetarians, because you can get all the protein you need from veggies. The liver, your liver is your chemical processing plant. It's detoxing things like alcohol. You know, people don't realize alcohol, your body treats alcohol as a toxin, right? And that's one of the things your liver does, is to detox the bad stuff. And these are all foods that have been proven to be really good for your liver. Take good care of your liver, you know. If you're on a drinking binge at night and you wake up in the morning and your liver's on the carpet going, "What did you do to me last night?" You know, you're going the wrong way. We are the only species that drinks the milk of another animal. We're number one, yo. We're nuts. What if every meat eater had to kill the meat they eat? Almost everybody be vegetarian, right? Very few people are up for, people like to eat chicken. Hand them a chicken, say, yeah, go ahead, strangle that chicken. What? You want me to strangle this? Well, what do you think happens, right, to that chicken for you to eat it? We must redefine waste. The U.S. food system wastes more than 365 million pounds of food per day. That's an easy number for you to remember. There's 365 days in the year. 365 million pounds of food every day. About 40 to 44% of our food does not make it from the farm to a mouth, right? It's lost somewhere along the way. Yet, 1 in every 8 Americans is hungry on a regular basis. I personally, as a father of 2 children, but now 2 more, that's just unacceptable. Kids should not be hungry. Wasted food is the largest source of urban garbage, and it emits greenhouse gases as it decomposes. If food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd worst emitter of greenhouse gases on Earth, behind us and China, right? That's how much food waste there is. Now, this is ice core data. The glaciologists, they go down to Antarctica, they drill these tubes of ice, they pull it out, and they can analyze the CO2 content in that ice from way back, millions of years ago. And they can tell you what the ocean levels were and what the global temperature was. What I want you to notice is the red is the CO2 concentration, right? The blue is the temperature variation. And you see how they kind of go together over thousands and thousands of years. But notice in the current period, where the red line goes, it's way outside that band of historic variation. Right? We're literally cooking the planet. And the way you can explain this to people is you hold up an apple and you say to them, the skin of this apple is thicker in relationship to this apple than our entire biosphere is in relation to planet Earth. Right? As deep as we can dig and high as we can fly, that little thin layer of livable space for humans is thinner than the skin of an apple is to an apple. Greenland ice sheet is melting, 772,000 square miles of ice. If it all melts, it raises ocean levels over 22 feet. Miami is gone. In Leonardo DiCaprio's movie, he interviews the mayor of Miami Beach, and the mayor of Miami Beach says, look, we got salt water coming up through the ground right now. We're spending $400 million on pumps and raising street levels. So if you have any climate deniers, send them to me and I'll explain it. New Orleans is doomed. Houston is doomed. If you've ever flown into Houston Airport, it's like San Francisco Airport. It's water, water, water airport. You know, it used to be a swamp. Washington, D.C. used to be a swamp. Thomas Jefferson referred to it as that miserable swamp in the wilderness. Glaciers and polar ice caps are melting. There's a great movie called Chasing Ice. It's about a guy named James Baylog. He also has a great presentation on TED.com where he engineered setting up time-lapse cameras at all the major glaciers in the world, and the cameras took a photo like once every minute, something like that. And then he shows you 3 years of glacial melt in 30 seconds. And you see these massive pieces of ice half a mile wide just flowing toward the ocean, right? So don't buy coastal property, and if you do, it's not a good legacy investment. This is Louisiana, the coast of Louisiana, with a 1 meter rise, Baton Rouge. New Orleans is out here in the middle of that red. There's a Native American tribe in this southern part of Louisiana. The whole tribe is being moved because their land is being inundated by the ocean. Cover story of National Geographic shows that when all the ice on the planet melts, it raises ocean levels more than 200 feet. Okay. Now, and people say, oh, but that's off in the future. Oh, so you're saying screw the great-grandchildren? Is that what you're saying? We shouldn't be concerned about the 7th generation down the road, as the Native Americans taught us? So climate chaos is happening now, and I like the term climate chaos as opposed to global warming, because people up in Minnesota go, oh, warming, yeah, that would be cool, it's too cold here, we need warming. No, it's climate chaos. It's the vacillation. I travel a lot globally, and I always make a point of asking elders about the weather. And no matter where you go, the elders will say, oh, the weather's changed. My home in New Jersey, where I grew up, we used to be able to skate on the river one direction for a mile because it would freeze every winter. That river hasn't frozen in years. Most Americans believe that global warming exists. 51% of Americans believe climate change is caused by human activities. The majority of people in the world are on our side. If we had global voting with the internet, we could have global voting. And if we asked everybody in the world, including children, should we continue destroying the environment or should we save it for future generations? We would win that vote. Should women have equality with men? We'd win. There'd be a few jerky men that would vote against it, but we'd win that vote. Should we shut down all the militaries and put it into healthcare and education? We'd win that vote. The majority of people in the world already share our humanitarian values, our ecological values, but they're not in power. What's in power is guns and money. Methane, CH4, very dangerous. Over a 20 to 30 year period, methane can trap up to 90 times more heat than CO2. It's not as long lasting as CO2, but it traps way more heat. And these emissions are not regulated by the federal government. If they had been, of course, Trump administration would get rid of them. Major source of climate change, you should watch the film Cowspiracy, right? Because they get into the issue of methane and how people don't pay attention to methane. And I apologize to the cow in this picture because it's not actually cow farts, it's cow burps, because they have 4 stomachs, they regurgitate their cud, they chew it again, swallow it, chew it again, swallow it. Kind of a gross way to eat, but every time they do that, it releases CH4, methane. Not good. Industrial meat emits the most methane, more than fossil fuels, right? More than housing, more than these other things, right? Is industrial meat. And that's why it's important to say to people, not just meat, but industrial meat, right? Because if you go and look at, I have some farmer friends up in Plumas County, and they raise animals in a really cool way where the animals are really happy, and the animals only have one bad day, right? The day they're harvested. And most of us can't say that we only have one bad day in our whole lives, right? That's pretty good. Chickens, turkeys, pigs, cows are collectively the largest producer of methane, 20 times more powerful trapping heat. Meat, egg, dairy industries produce 65% of worldwide nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is 300 times more powerful than CO2 in trapping heat. You never hear people talk about nitrous oxide, and unless you're going to the dentist and they use it, refined type of nitrous oxide for pain. And it's coming out of our landfills too, right? When food goes to the landfill, that's why it's good that San Francisco's at about 80% resource recovery, because our composting takes our green waste and makes it into soil and sells it to vineyards and vegetable gardens and golf courses, etc. It's a very cool program. I wish we had it up in Plumas County. The diets of meat eaters create 7 times the greenhouse gas emissions as the diets of vegans. We're killing animals every year. The corporate slaughter of animals creates more climate chaos than all cars and trucks. There's a simple fact you can lay on people. This is really solid UN data. The meat industry creates more climate chaos than cars and trucks on a planetary level, right? 13% greenhouse gases from cars and trucks, 14.5% from greenhouse gases. And you got to include the nitrous oxide, very powerful heat trapper. Meat industry workers suffer, right? This relates to the immigration issue because a lot of these jobs, they're dangerous. They're not fun jobs, right? And who are they? A lot of them are immigrants without legal status. There's no such thing as an illegal human being. Eggs industry kills millions of chicks every week, throwing them alive into grinding machines or garbage bags because they're male, right? Roosters, they're worthless. It's kind of like the human species. Come on, guys, let's admit it. The women are the ones who produce life, and we're there to go to the mouth of the cave and convince that saber-toothed tiger to not eat everybody in the cave. And when it's your job, and I'm speaking from my own personal history here, when it's your job to do that, you're scared. You're scared of that saber-toothed tiger, and you need some internal chemical to make you crazy and stick a burning stick in that tiger's eye. That's the function of testosterone. It's a self-sacrifice chemical. It's not a dominance chemical. Bitch, get in the kitchen, make me dinner. No, it's a self-sacrifice chemical, right? Because when the alpha male lion goes to the perimeter to protect the pride against a predator, it's not in his self-interest. He could get killed, right? I could get killed fending off that saber-toothed tiger. It's not in my self-interest, it's in the group's interest. So there's a different kind of masculine consciousness out there in the world where we're understanding what our proper role is. Patriarchy is bullshit, and it's time for us men to start claiming that and taking responsibility for changing the system. Average diet: vegan, 300 gallons of water; vegetarian, 1,200 gallons of water; meat eater, 4,000 gallons. If people knew, this is from John Robbins' book, if people knew how much water is used to make a hamburger or a steak or anything like that, they'd maybe wake up, because peak water, people talk about peak oil. Peak water is going to make peak oil look like child's play. We're already at peak water. So that's why I live up in the mountains, the Feather River. Plumas County is the Feather River, all 3 branches. You'd save more water by not eating 1 pound of beef than you would by not taking a shower for 6 months. I'm not suggesting you stop taking showers, right? But you might want to stop eating beef. I did a lot of work in Africa, and I've seen stuff like this and cried myself to sleep at night from kids getting sick because they don't have clean water. There's a water filtration system that would sit on a desk. It costs about $1,000. It could be in every village in the world. And it's not, because the people running the world, I've written books about the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, big corporations. It's not their children. It's not their children that are dying from bad water. Their kids have nice water, nice school, nice chauffeur to take them to school, etc. And they're insulated. I always use the example of San Francisco bus system, Muni. The guy who runs Muni gets paid probably about $200,000, $250,000 a year and a car. They give him a car. He's running a bus system. You don't give him a car, you give him a bus pass, right? And you say, we want to see your ass on a bus every day, pal, and take a different route. You don't give him a car because you just then created an interruption of the feedback loop. All of nature works on feedback loops, and hierarchy, which we're into in our unequal society, it breaks that feedback loop, right? Dumb. More than 260 million acres of U.S. forests have been cleared to create cropland to grow grain to feed farmed animals. Equivalent of 7 football fields of land bulldozed every minute to create more room for farmed animals. I'm sorry, that's just nuts. So this is an extractive economic model. I'm living in Plumas County. There was gold discovered. Whoosh. Gold was extracted. Forests. Timber was extracted. Water, the Feather River. 20 million people get water from the Feather River. The electricity that PG&E generates on the hydroelectric dams. At a business conference, I said, hey, how much of that electric income that PG&E makes from our dams on our river, how much of that income? They all go, nothing. So think about that. Plumas County has an extractive history, like a third world country, right? The copper in Zambia, the gold in South Africa, the wood of Mozambique, the oil of Angola. It made outside people rich, like Chevron or Chase Manhattan or whatever, but you find poverty. Plumas County, where I'm living now, with all this natural wealth, the Feather River, the forests are just, massive, massive forests. And we rank #1 in the state among California counties for opioid overdose deaths. We're #1. You know, really? How the hell do you get a system where you have so much natural wealth and so much poverty, cheek by jowl, blue tar, plastic, trailer homes? So, why does a salad cost more than a Big Mac? Well, over here you have the federal subsidies. Fruits and vegetables get less than 1%, right? And meat and dairy and grains get the big, Federal nutrition recommendations, big chunk to vegetables and fruits. Well, how come you're not funding the vegetables and fruits like we know nutritionally, and we could argue with this nutrition thing too, but it's totally out of whack with the science. And it's unfortunate because now we have an administration in Washington that doesn't believe in science, right? Climate deniers. Concentration of U.S. Department of Agriculture farm subsidy payments, the top 15% of farms, and this is increasing, by the way. It's probably worse than this by now. The average farmer in the United States is about 59 years old, and that number is going up because young people are not going into farming because it takes so much money to get into the game. Think about the farming structure. If you're a family farm, on the upstream side of your equipment and seed and fertilizer and chemicals, whatever, you got a few big corporations. On the downstream side where you're selling it, you got a few big corporations. So here's the family farm caught between two sectors that are dominated by huge corporations that are market shapers, right? Farm bill lobbying. 350 companies lobby on the farm bill. $150 million spent on Senate Farm Bill lobbying in 2013. We got another farm bill coming up, and it's going to be a big deal, right? It's something to pay attention to. Real men are kind to animals. Let's redefine masculinity so it's not about killing and eating other living things. What the neuroscientists are teaching us is that we are hardwired for compassion and empathy. We have mirror neurons in our brain. If I do an act of kindness toward this gentleman, his serotonin levels go up. It's one of those good chemicals like oxytocin, right? It makes you feel good, makes you healthy. His serotonin levels go up through my act of kindness. My serotonin levels go up, and anyone who observes that act of kindness, their serotonin levels go up. It's why the AT&T ads have some kid calling up his grandpa. Hi, Grandpa, happy birthday. Oh, I'm so glad you called me. You know, because it plays on that hard wiring for empathy and compassion that we have. Just don't take it too far, okay? Just don't take it too far. And this is how swine flu got started right now. No. I have to apologize because the father, I cropped the photo. The father is right behind the kid going, no, don't do that. That kid ended up loving bacon. Timothy 6:10. If you got Christian friends and you want to quote the Bible, quote Timothy 6:10. It's always misquoted. People say money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is just a tool, right? It's just a tool. A hammer, you can build a house with it. You could kill somebody with it, right? It's how that tool gets used. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. And chasing money can get you into trouble, you know? I mean, I don't know who shot this photo, but man, that's weird. So the question is, which golden rule are we going to live by? Those possessing the gold make the rules, or do unto other living things. Think, you know, people say the golden rule, do unto others. Let's just unpack the word others to mean all living things, right? Very simple. Who's going to disagree? In one of my books, Building the Green Economy, we went around and we looked at all these different cultures around the world, and they all have some version of the golden rule. And it's all about treat others the way you want to be treated. It's really simple, right? But if we unpack that word to go beyond people to be living things, we'd stop screwing up the planet. So we're in the early stages of the first ever global revolution. Instead of money values ruling over the life cycle, life values will rule over the money cycle. If we had global voting and we said to everybody in the world, okay, look, we can do it one of two ways. We can either subordinate people and nature to the economy, or we can subordinate the economy to people and nature. Most people are going to say, hey, screw that. The economy is supposed to serve us and protect the environment in which we're all dependent on, right? Everybody wants clean water and good food. So there's a big food fight going on. There's a massive movement that's spreading all around the world that's taking on corporate power. You got all these great resources, right? Edible action, food activism, films, food not bombs. Food not bombs. They get arrested. They get arrested in cities for giving out free food to people, right? There's a contradiction for you, right? The Food Activist Handbook, great book. These are companies that are committed to non-GMO foods, and these numbers are growing. And we want to watch with Amazon taking over Whole Foods. You know, are they going to start cutting corners, or are they going to keep it honest? Because you know, billionaires have this funny habit of doing whatever the hell they want to do and thinking they can get away with it, right? Fair trade. I was one of the founders of the Fair Trade USA, one of the main fair trade certifiers in the U.S. If you are buying a cup of fair trade certified coffee at a cafe, and it's fair trade certified coffee beans, you're paying maybe 2 or 3 cents more for that. It is a little bit more expensive because fair trade imposes organic, women have to play a role in leadership, the money has to be invested in schools and healthcare. You know, there's a whole package that comes with getting certified fair trade as a farmer, whether it's coffee, cocoa, bananas, whatever. That few cents for us as a consumer translates into like 200% increase in the income of those farmers. Should we not respect the people in the global south who are growing our food? A lot of it is our dessert, right? Because colonialism came in and said, no, don't grow food for your own people. Grow coffee and cocoa and tea and cut flowers and stuff for us rich people. You know, and that's what the market does. The market translates my kids' desire for cocoa into pressure on a West African farmer to grow cocoa beans instead of food for their own kids. And that was pitched by the U.S. government, right? Hey, no, you don't want to grow food. You want to grow export crops and make money, and then you can buy food. Yeah, and then you're tied into a global market where big corporations dominate, and you as a small farmer just get screwed in so many different ways. And I've seen this with my own eyes and cried myself to sleep at night and just get really angry. I got enough anger for 10 people. The trick is, how do you channel that anger into nonviolent activism? Right? And it's the youth around the world that are leading this climate struggle, because they understand, hey, you old people are going to be dead when the caca hits the fan. We're going to have to live with it, and our kids, right? So we need to be always thinking multi-generationally. And it's happening. People are out in the streets, right? Massive demonstrations all around the world. This was New York, 300 to 400,000 people on the climate march, right? So dumbasses like Trump can say whatever they want about, climate change isn't real. It hasn't been proven on. No, science is on our side, right? And there's mountains of documentation. So ideology is not a good basis for policy. Science is a good basis for policy. This is actually going on in Plumas County right now. All the northeastern counties have decided to not make commercial production of cannabis legal. And in Plumas, there's a bunch of farmers that have been growing cannabis for years, and they're really nice people, and they want to keep doing that, right? And so we had these public meetings all around the county. And I get up and I explain there's 113 cannabinoids. The one, tetrahydrocannabinol, the THC that makes people high. It's the psychoactive cannabinoid. But there's all these other more than 100 cannabinoids that are not psychoactive, and they have medical uses for epilepsy and emphysema and glaucoma and cancer, because the federal government's money for research on cannabis stipulated that the research had to be focused on the negative effects of cannabis. It couldn't be for positive effects. But Israel and England and a whole bunch of other countries have been doing research for decades. And there's books, there's massive, I have them, there are these massive volumes of all the medical evidence of how these cannabinoids, every mammal, including us, is born with endocannabinoids that you produce. Your body, you have cannabinoid receptors in your brain, in various parts of your brain. The one place you don't have cannabinoid receptors is in the brain stem that controls heart and lung, which is why you can't overdose, right? And believe me, I've come close a couple times where you go, oh my God, I got to lay down, man. This shit's really powerful. Right? So it's this magic plant, right, that you can get thousands of products from. And people get up in these public meetings, and a guy gets up right after I spoke, and he goes, well, I didn't see no endocannabinoid mentioned in the Bible. Yeah, that's right. You didn't see it in the Bible. That's true. I can't believe I still have to protest this stuff. So what we're seeing, I like to call it the solutionary movement. It's all of these different movements, the women's movement, the green economy movement, the peace movement, the climate change movement, all coming together, saying, hey, let's change direction. Think about herd animals, right? Primitive humans used to chase herds of animals off a cliff as a way to kill them, because when they're big, what are you going to do? You got a little spear? That's like a mosquito bite. You chase them off a cliff. Lemmings, they say, they run off a cliff. But they don't all run off a cliff. There's a certain percentage that see what's going on, and they go, wait, hold it, 90-degree turn, right? And that's what's going on with our species right now. We're in the stage of awakening, the age of Aquarius, where we go. I was at Woodstock at the age of 19, had my first acid trip at Woodstock. That's going to change you, you know? I mean, there's swimming naked in a lake with a whole bunch of other naked people. Oh, man, if that doesn't change you. So, we want to replace patriotism with matriotism. Mother Earth. Why do we call it Mother Earth? We all came out of a mother, right? And this relates to patriarchy being BS and us men taking responsibility for taking down patriarchy. It's had its run, and it's really screwed stuff up. All these wars, if war worked, we would have had peace by now. War doesn't work, right? It's ineffective. It doesn't bring about anything better. It brings about more war. And I've been in some of those cities in Iraq that have been just demolished by these guys. And it's guys, let's face it. You know, there's a few women involved, but it's mostly guys doing this stuff. So should we love one part of the planet or the whole planet? Duh. Naomi Klein's book is great. This changes everything, because what she says is, this is an opportunity. Climate chaos is an opportunity for us to say to people, look, we got to change the system. Just tinkering around the edges, you know, it's like a car, the internal combustion engine. Yeah, we'll dig up 200 million year old fossil fuels, explode them inside a chamber. That'll make things move. Less than 1% of the energy of a car moves you. Over 99% of the energy expended by an internal combustion engine moves the big hunk of lead, right? And that's why all cars are going to go electric, and all trucks and buses are going to go electric as well. So we have to be good ancestors. We think of ancestors as the people who came before us, but we are ancestors. We don't want future generations to curse us. We want them to say, wow, you know, right in the early 2000s, humanity started to wake up and change direction. So we need long-term consciousness. The Masons who laid the foundation, this is the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore in Florence. I've actually climbed to the very top of that. It's beautiful. If you ever go to Florence, climb to the top. When they built this, they didn't know how to build that dome. They wanted to build the biggest dome in the world, and this guy Brunelleschi came along and he said, I'll figure it out. So they built the cathedral and left a huge hole. And for years they were like, oh, let's see, we'll figure this out. And eventually they figured it out. It took 114 years to finish that cathedral. The Masons who laid the foundation layer knew they would not see the final product of their work. But they knew they had to do very solid, precise work because of all the weight that was going to come on top of their work. That's us. Right now, us, alive now, it's our job to lay the foundations of a future global economy with no hungry children, no wars for oil, no clear-cut forests, no endangered species, and that will come about. The only question is, how long is it going to take, and how much courage we're going to have to muster. That's the main thing we're lacking, is courage to make this happen, and it's going to happen. And I leave you with the prime directive from William McDonough: how do we love all the children of all species for all time? Just simple 13 words. That's my email if you want to complain about my talk. Global Exchange is my organization. And thank you for your attention. Appreciate it. Do we have time for Q&A? Q&A. Yeah, of course you got a question, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm a climate chaos junkie, and I read the climate news every single day. So, I wanted to encourage you to update your graphics. You've got some 2003 graphics that show the melting ice, and it's way worse than in this graphics right now. And then the other thing is that, so I follow the like scientific journals on climate change, and I also follow the mainstream media's take on it. And if you look at alternative, sort of liberal-ish news stories right now, they're talking about the sixth mass extinction and human extinction by 2100, like everywhere. If you look for it, you'll find it. Humans will not be on the planet after 2100. So I'm wondering why, if you have so much hope, is the mainstream media telling us that humanity is doomed by the end of the century?
Yeah, I created a new term. It's called apocalyptic cynicism. Apocalyptic cynicism. if you think about the way, there have been plenty of civilizations that have crashed in the past, and it's interesting to see a correlation between the decline of quality in the soil and the collapse of civilizations. And that's what we're seeing in our country. The nutritional value of our soil, we were blessed with really thick soil in the Midwest, thanks you to the bison, right? The bison were eating perennial grasses, pooping and peeing, and you get all this buildup. And then we come in with steel plows, and we dig it up, and there's wind erosion. We lose 200 billion tons of topsoil a year in this country. You can't keep doing that forever, right? So there is going to be, population will peak at somewhere around 9 or 10 billion, and then it's going to go down, and, you know, there's like cataclysmic predictions about how, but the human species will survive because certain percentage of the population is already adjusting. You will notice the Rockefeller Foundation is funding resilience. They just gave millions of dollars to 100 cities around the world to do resilience, which is prepare for hurricanes, earthquakes, all that kind of stuff, but also grow your own food, go to renewable energy, go to electric vehicles, etc. And I see that change going on everywhere I go. People waking up and people making money in a lot of places in the world now. Renewable energy, wind and solar. Wind is the fastest growing, actually. They're beating the fossil fuels in the marketplace. That's why you got so many coal plants shutting down and coal companies going out of business, investors who invested in coal losing a lot of money, and that's a really good thing. So there's a lot of positive trends. So here's one way to think of it. The system that is sucks, and it's getting worse. The system that could be is awesome and keeps getting better. So they're stretching further and further apart. If we can get people through education and political activism to get out of this system as it is and go to the system that could be, that's part of the global revolution, the global values revolution. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll send Bill an email and suggest it to him. I don't know Al Gore, but I know Bill, and he's an amazing guy, and he influences a lot of people. I think it's through us taking responsibility to keep getting in touch with to hector them, right? What do lobbyists do? Lobbyists, I lived in Washington for 5 years. The lobbyists, they're called lobbyists because they hang out in the lobby. And when the member of Congress comes out, they chase after him and say, hey, can we have a meeting? Can we have a meeting? In fundraising, you always want to get a meeting with the person who's doling out the money. If you don't get a face-to-face meeting, anybody can write a proposal, but what you're doing is getting that face-to-face meeting and convincing them, hey, this guy sitting in front of you that you're looking at right now, I can take this proposal and make it into a real institution. I can bring it to life. Yes, sir.
I'd like you to share your opinion. I have a rather pessimistic theory. Tell me what you think of it. That if politicians, major politicians and CEOs were to do the right thing with regards to, let's say, food, for example, meat, dairy, they would suddenly disappear or die of unknown reasons. I mean, the money aspect is just too strong, and the people that are profiting won't allow it. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Bobby Kennedy was going to be president of the United States, and Bobby Kennedy was radical, right? He would have ended our involvement in Vietnam, where we killed 3 million people. My government tried to send me when I was 18. I said, no thanks, I'm not going. I grew up with guns. I know what guns do. So, yeah, they can kill Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy and John Kennedy and other people, but that shouldn't intimidate us, because that shows weakness. My brother and I, he's 2 years older than me, we used to play chess, and when he started to lose at the chess game, he would act like he had to go to the bathroom, and as he got up, he'd bump the board and knock it over. Well, you didn't win. That's a default. You lost, right? If you have to silence your opponents, look at Trump with the football players. You know, Jeff Sessions, the so-called Attorney General, is making a speech about freedom of speech at some university on the same day that Trump is saying that football players shouldn't be allowed to raise consciousness about racial inequality by kneeling down. You know, the flag, really? The flag, there's no flag big enough to cover the shame of killing innocent people. We have military activity going on in dozens of countries right now that we know nothing about, right, where we're killing people, and we're paying for it, right? And Trump wants to increase the military budget. It's ridiculous. But on the positive side, I have a whole presentation about green military. There's a whole section of the military that's going into solar energy and energy efficiency and biofuels. The Navy has biofuel targets, etc. Because there's a certain number of military people that are scientists. They have college degrees. They read the same books that we do, and they go, "Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, renewable energy makes a lot of sense." So even in an institution like that, right? And so there's struggles going on inside all of these agencies. There was a woman in the U.S. Department of Agriculture who put out this thing about Meatless Monday. And she got jumped on. She didn't get jumped on immediately. Vilsack, who was Secretary of Agriculture, got jumped on by the meat industry, and then he puts out this thing disavowing this staff person's Meatless Monday suggestion, right? Okay, but if you have to do that, if I have to twist your arm to get you to agree with my position, that's not strength, that's weakness. A government that represses is not a strong government. It's a weak government. And remember, this country was founded on the principle that all humans are born equal with inalienable rights. Inalienable means you can't give them up, and they can't be taken away. If you get put in prison, you still have those rights, right? And these rights are life, physical health, food, water, liberty, political freedom, the right to say what you want, worship how you want, and the pursuit of happiness. If there's one child hungry on this planet, I'm not happy. I'm not happy, because those children are my children, right? Thanks for that. I think we're getting close to the time. Any burning last question? Love is the answer. Yes?
What you were talking about, Cowspiracy, I like that reference. There was something with regard to Cowspiracy where he made a reference to all of the waste that's generated by livestock. It was equivalent to almost 1 trillion human beings worth of untreated sewage going into the ocean, and that might match the nitrous oxide, which I don't remember from the film. So I think that was good for you to point it out. Also, I just wanted to say I also like the sequel, What the Health, which goes into more detail, and it's from a slightly different angle, but it's the same guy did it. But I'm also concerned about the pessimistic approach, which is, what do we do about nuclear terrorism, which actually got started here by a Nazi inside job, imported. What are we going to do? How is that going? How are we going to get around that if we want to make some changes that are going to stop us from being flooded with 200 feet of water?
I'm not a Pollyanna. I study this stuff, so I know how immense the problems are. But you got to think group, right? The notion of an individual, there's no such thing, right? You came out of another human being. You are defined chemically and physically by your relationships. We're social animals like wolves and ants, right? The notion of an individual was created by corporate capitalism to sell us more crap we don't need, right? And if you think about it, most advertising, that's what it is. It's you're incomplete, but if you buy this product, you'll be complete. Or be afraid they're going to break into your house, but if you buy our security system, you'll be safe. It's all bullshit, right? And so we shouldn't let the negative stuff take away our courage and our fortitude of we're going to achieve this. It's just realizing that your eyes are not going to see the final outcome, right? We are going to contribute. We're going to put bricks in the foundation, and future generations are going to look back and go, hey, that was really cool that those vegan, vegetarian people started waking people up to the climate chaos connection of meat and the corporate power and all that kind of stuff. So we don't want to create unrealistic expectations for our achievements in social change, because that would cause us to go, oh shit, man, I just can't. I've been working on this for so many years. I can't, right? People come up to me after we're talking, they say, what can I do? And I say, not much. As an individual, you do it with other people. Join organizations. participate in a march. Even in Plumas County, in our little town of Quincy with only 5,000 people, every Friday there's a bunch of us out on the main street with signs trashing Trump and saying science, facts matter, stuff like that. And science is on our side. The facts are on our side. Let's imagine there's a God, and she comes down and she goes, okay, you can have either guns and money, or you can have facts and moral authority. You're not going to take guns and money, because guns and money are temporal. They blow away in the wind, right? That's what's in power right now, is guns and money. Facts and moral authority will eventually come to power. We just might not see it. It might be future generations that see it. And have faith in that. You got to have faith in that, right? Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate it. And I'll hang out if anybody wants to talk about stuff.
One more time, everybody, for your last speaker of the evening, Dr. Kevin Danaher. Give it up for him. Thank you very much. That was an awesome speech. Well, San Francisco, that wraps things up in the auditorium today for the 18th annual San Francisco World Veg Festival. Thank you guys for coming out, listening to our speakers, being a part of this. And I don't know if any Greg's around, but again, big props to San Francisco Veg Society and Greg Rohrbach, his wife Patty. They're doing some great things. So thank you guys. We'll see you back here next year.